Here we are live with Marko Topchii. Marko, it's so
Hey,
great to see you.
so great to see you too, Stefan. And thanks everyone for tuning in for the concert.
Well, we all very much enjoyed it. Just following along in the comments, and on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for putting it all together and presenting it in the way that you did. I know that in the interview you had with David Tenenbaum, you talked in detail about the process that was involved in filming it, and just what a successful project and concert it resulted in. So thank you for taking the time to share with all of us.
Thank you for this. I just wanted to act accordingly to the seriosity of the series. So
Definitely.
had to do the most I could. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I know that it's pretty early there. What time is it where you are right now?
Should be 6:30. Yeah, I'm in Kiev right now, and it's like 10 hours plus from San Francisco. Yeah, but sometimes I don't sleep at this time, whether I'm still awake or maybe have like woken up. So this time I just decided to take a little nap before the Q&A. So,
Nice. Well, thanks for doing that.
my brain seems to be working just fine.
Yeah. I remember we were actually students together at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. And
that was a cool time.
Yeah, we were living in the same building, and I think I was doing laundry down the hall once, and we were on the same floor, maybe a floor apart, and I heard guitar music playing, and this must have been like an ungodly hour. It was maybe 2:30 a.m. And I go to the stairwell, and then sure enough, there you are, filling the stairwell with beautiful sound. Yeah.
And we had a really good conversation. It was a blast. I've really loved being there at the stairwell and seeing living people in the building. Talking about the stairwell, that was a savior at that time, because I'm really a night person, and I was more of a night person that time, and I didn't feel comfortable playing after like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. in the dorms. But there was the stairwell that no one really got use of. So sometimes until like they close the roof after 11 p.m. or something like that, and I used to jump rope there on the roof like half an hour before they close, and then just go to practice afterwards. It's really weird to talk about, to say this, because I'm not usually very well organized, but this time I was. So sometimes I was practicing just before like they opened the roof after they close it, so like until 7 a.m. or something like that, and probably that's the time when we met.
Yeah, it was really pleasant meeting. You told me how your brain is freshest in those hours. I believe it was like between the hours maybe 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. I think.
Or the more relaxed, because sometimes I feel it is unjustly easier to play at night. So maybe not always the most efficient way of practicing, because life's harder like during the day. So probably I should be like working out during the day as I play these competitions or concerts. But yeah, that was the most available time I had.
Good. Well, it sure pays off. All right. Well, let's see what the people here are saying. So we have a couple people commenting. Well, let me open it up to those who have questions for you. So anyone who's watching, please feel free to submit your question in the live chat for Marko. While they do that, I'll just read you a few comments from CB Tutor. He's saying hello, Marko. He said he's had the privilege to see you first at the Biasini guitar competition in San Francisco.
Which one? San Francisco.
Yeah. That was it 2016 or so?
I guess. A few years. Okay. Really surreal, because then I realized that I haven't just visited San Francisco. Well, I have visited San Francisco before, apparently. Well, this took a little bit of a toll, I guess, when I was making the decision to also study there. But pretty surreal to come back after having played in a competition in the conservatory before. There were several Biasinis. This is why I'm trying to clarify, because first one was in Bologna, then the second was in Basel, the third one was in San Francisco, the fourth one was in Paris. So pretty cool. What is the question?
So, he was asking he was wondering if you plan to record the whole suite, I'm guessing, of the pictures of an exhibition. That's what he added. Yeah.
I should, yeah, probably I should, and I guess the time has come when I think I've been saving them up in a certain way until now, I guess, because now is the time when I actually like did a recording for a concert of them, and I usually restore them every several years. The first time I ever played them all together was like when I was 18, so like 12 years ago, I guess. And I keep coming back to them from time to time. And I guess that this is the year again, and it feels better. Feels better. I've done some slight changes that got me even closer to the original, which I always strive for. And maybe the time will come very, very soon. But I would really like to make that recording to finally make it like audible, listenable, and presentable. So yeah, great question, and I will try, and will do, I guess.
Jennifer Trowbridge is saying, congratulations, Marko. Thank you for a beautiful and inspiring performance. It filled my heart completely.
Thank you.
And here's one. R.A. is asking, thank you for the concert, Marko. My question for you is, when you were a younger guitarist, which techniques gave you the most difficulty and how did you work around to master them?
Oh, yeah. Also a good question. I think every technique, like even tremolo, gave me a hard time. And it always felt like there was a certain speed limit that was possible. And I think it was more of a speed limit. Well, let's probably not talk about the brain when I was 12, 11, 13. I guess this was the time of some breakthroughs that I had to make. But basically, I think it's also the Giuliani's first etude or something like that. We actually have a nickname for it in Ukraine and in the circle that I lived in. But I think it's the first Giuliani, which is in arpeggios, is in E minor. That technique also is like very detrimental for a guitarist. And I remember my professor, my teacher, giving it to me, and me kind of like trying to break the code. It really felt like breaking through and trying to break the piece. So I think that most of the time, starting from a certain age, I had a tremolo piece, and I also had this thing. I also had the first etude by Villa-Lobos that also made my like left hand really struggle in the moments where these parallel sequences, like down going sequences, where it was really the time when this muscle that like contracts these two fingers really had a hard time. And I think I was like that kind of a kid that didn't want to practice that much, but when I did, I had to like, it had to be interesting a certain way. And by trying to make it interesting, I was actually trying to break it, like break the speed limit and stuff. And in the moments when I did it, the hands got a little bit stiffer, but I think I figured that out later. And the most important thing for me was kind of like to break through a certain limit. And I think these three pieces, if I describe them, like any tremolo piece, the first etude by Villa-Lobos, first, I think, etude by Giuliani, these are also like pretty detrimental to the guitar technique, to the common guitar technique. So I would probably name these three.
Interesting. Thank you. So the next, the person who asked about the pictures at an exhibition said, thank you for your answer. He's looking forward to your recording of the Mussorgsky. Another question by Baris Beser is asking, can you talk a little bit about how you picked the guitar as your instrument? He said if he recalls correctly, it was not your first instrument. Cheers from San Francisco.
Nice to meet you, Baris. And cheers from Ukraine. Baris, remember you well. So with the guitar, my parents gave me to the music school to play guitar just because it kind of fitted probably my little body that I had. Also, my mom's a pianist, so maybe she wanted to give me to some musical instrument, but maybe was reluctant to like give me to piano. But I requested that when I was 8. So guitar was my first thing to do. Piano was a little bit later. But my first teacher, my first guitar teacher, was also my English teacher, and he seemed to have a really good communication with kids in general. So I think that this was detrimental to my parents' choice in general, and like it just probably snowballed from there. I wasn't really a good learner in general. I was quite lazy to do things and was not really motivated for some reason. But once I got a more interesting program in general, I started like developing better. And since you get a little bit more self sufficient, probably you just start searching for your own means of like doing this. So guitar was the first instrument that I had, and it just like it was pretty much inertia. But yeah.
Yeah, to add on to that, do you remember the piece or a couple of pieces that really sparked it for you, like to really turn you onto the instrument?
Yeah, I actually can name them because I've been thinking about this, like what really caused a difference, made a difference. When I was 12 or 13, my teacher, my mom actually like almost begged my teacher to give me something more difficult and interesting. And he gave me Grand Sonata Eroica by Mauro Giuliani, the Seventh Etude by Villa-Lobos, and something else that I cannot quite remember, but these two pieces were of that other level that like had me grow. And I just remember during summer holidays, I kept coming to my teacher's place to like practice this repertoire for a competition. And for a while, especially the Seventh Etude, the Grand Sonata was also, of course, really like challenging and a big piece, the biggest I ever had for like that whole time. But I think that the Seventh Etude is what stayed with me for a much longer time. I somehow just figured out, I think, the whole form of the piece. So, but these two are really, well, with a lot of scales that I always struggled with. These were the catalysts of that process. Maybe I'll remember something more, but I think that those two for sure.
Right. It seems that a lot of people reference Etude number 7. That's a popular one.
Yeah, I've been using it ever since for competitions. I've played the whole set of them, but the 7th one stayed with me for a really long time.
Great. So the next question is by Mr. Mark. I'm going to say just his last name. Marko, your concert from the Cathedral in Kiev was fantastic and the sound was amazing. Is there something about that cathedral that you can share with us that made it sound so special?
Made it sound so special. Well, it's as simple as it gets, actually. It's two microphones that are crisscross 90 degrees, if I'm showing 90 correctly. And it was really so good that almost like no sound editing was required. So I guess this large dome in the center is really what contributed to this whole sound, because there was really nothing more. It is a pretty compact church, and it doesn't have that much extra space for what we have been shown. So I felt really challenged with the acoustics of the building, because somehow this is flattering, but at the same time very challenging in terms of like the attempt of trying to like break through this whole reverb and the whole echo thing. So for me, it was a question of how active I will be as a performer, and do I have to allow myself to relax during the performance and let it go, or do I actually have to be more active to like somehow pierce through this whole shroud of resonance that I had. And I think I tried to go for the more active choice. And of course, once you go any which way, there may be things that you might be regretting, but I really don't know how it could have went the other way. But this is what my psyche and intuition generally told me to do. So I was always really working at the same level as I usually am. So for me, a flattering place like this doesn't mean less work. Actually, it maybe even means more. First of all, because I don't get to play in places like this most of the time, knowing like that I practice in practice room with microphones and stuff. But generally, it is a very compact place, which allowed it to really sound that comfortable way, more or less comfortable way. Yeah.
The sound was just fantastic.
Thank you.
So The other question we have up is by CB Tutor again. He's asking, he actually saw you in concert playing the Concerto de Aranjuez at the Biasini here in San Francisco. And he's asking if you're planning to play more guitar concertos in the future. And I guess I also want to know, when's your next upcoming performance?
Next performance, that would be a hard one to recall. I try to keep them all in my mind, more or less, and in my calendar, of course. I think what I can think of right now would be the next Biasini competition and festival. And if I remember well, it's going to be in November, could be in October though. And it will be in Bologna, where I'll be playing a quintet with two other winners, Petri Cecu and Emanuele Bono. Hopefully that will all be possible and like all come out just as good as it sounds. The other performances, I think I hope I will have another performance in Ukraine, in Lviv, which is on the west of Kiev. It is another major city, a very culturally, let's say, aesthetically beautiful place. Well, it probably has 5 times more churches than Kiev does. That's the least to say. And it's supposed to be in May, but I don't know if it's going to happen because we have this lockdown that has been prolonged again. Other performances hopefully could include the GFA this year. As we probably all know, the GFA has transitioned a little bit to online, but the finals they're still planning to do in a place that they will announce later. And if everything goes well, I might as well be performing there. Well, as for traveling, so I haven't been traveling much these days. I've found other alternatives, let's say, to this whole thing. Yeah, these are the things that I'm planning to do. And about the guitar concertos, I definitely, for me, it is a positive and a little bit negative thing to play with orchestras in general. I don't want to say too much in terms of this, because really there were wonderful experiences playing with orchestras and conductors. But in general, it is also a very kind of like hard thing to do, let's say. Like the time when I got when I developed this idea of performing in general, well, when this idea started getting a little bit better, of understanding a little bit better of performing with orchestras, I realized that not only I have to follow really my part and really be present in my part, but also actually above that I have to be always very synchronized with other instruments. And most of my experience like that comes from playing in competitions, which were like, this was really heated up with all this judgmental thing, and trying to make a performance still made it very intense. And not everything always works out like really perfectly well. And let's say I'm more looking forward to my like basic forms of like performance. But with orchestras, it always feels like a cherry on top, and it always feels like a huge responsibility, a positive responsibility. And I think I've played like around 15 pieces for guitar and orchestra, more than like 10 or 12 concerti for guitar and orchestra. And probably once the quarantine and lockdowns and everything gets better, we'll be able to gather up at an even bigger rate, or like at the same rate. I had one concert postponed in Israel with Mario Castellano Tedesco's guitar concerto. I'm actually looking more forward, not into just performing these pieces, but actually trying to record them and trying to make these things a little bit more timeless. Because when I look at performances and at concerts, I realize that of course, yeah, we can always try to maintain our shape for the whole like life period, but in general it still feels a little bit, maybe this is the beauty of it, but it still feels a little bit fadeable. And I want to really make it more like reusable, re-listenable. So more looking forward to maybe recording something like that, which would be probably apparently a very big project.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. So we have a couple more questions. First one is a 2-part question, and it's from R.A. Marko. And he's asking, if you could choose any composer from the past to compose for the guitar, who would you choose and why?
Wow, to like, I would have to answer something very, very expected of me, maybe, and maybe something that would be very understandable. Maybe I would choose Johann Sebastian Bach and just seal it, sign, seal, and deliver it like that, because it's really, especially for me when I'm thinking rather in pieces, and I've really had this time when there were no favorite composers for me as much as some favorite pieces that I played, especially when I played like Mario Costantino Tedesco's Capriccio Diabolico. I've realized that not that I just like or love Mario Costantino Tedesco's music, I actually really am attached to the composition. And at that time I had Antonio Jose's Sonata, played other repertoire like Alexander Tansman's variations on a theme by Scriabin, Passacaria, and it was really hard. Or yeah, or Rodrigo's piece that I played at that time. Probably this is when I didn't play toccata yet. I was thinking about this, whether I do have a favorite composer, because that would be really nice to have an answer for that. But then I realized that I don't really have an answer for that, because a lot of pieces are just like things that I pick from many of the compositions of any given composer. So I cannot quite give an answer to this, but I really love Joaquin Rodrigo's music, and most of what I heard really suits what I think and feel about music. So that could be also a very good choice. It's a little bit in a way Rodrigo-ish, so we don't get to hear that multi facetedness like in general in terms of experiments, but still he has contained so many folk material that actually makes his pieces very diverse. And Invocazione Danza is a whole collection of these motives, so which really makes this music fantastic. So maybe I could name also Joaquin Rodrigo, hopefully.
Absolutely. All right. So this next part of the question is actually asking you about your tone. He's saying that it's very unique, and he wanted to know, did it come along naturally as you practiced more, or did you study others to make it sort of a combo of your favorites? I guess, like, who, if you had any musical influences, other guitarists perhaps that you've taken from and kind of adopted as your own?
Yeah, the tone. It always puzzles me what to do with the tone. It's this, it's this thing with performers. Like some singers might be on a good level, but they might be a little bit irritated with their own voice. Same goes with tone. I've never really been that satisfied with my tone, and I consider it something to be, to put it quite simple, to be something of just like the timbre of my voice or something like that, something unavoidable, I guess, because I heard from a couple of colleagues, friends, that they could actually recognize my playing by my tone or something like that, or by the approach or something like that. And I guess if to break it down, it probably, results, the reasoning for that would be like everyone's really specific like speed of attack, and or the shape of their nails and stuff like that. I don't really have particularly long nails, well, especially now, because I like kind of like shorten them even more. But in general, I don't think I didn't think too much of my tone, except for that I always have to work on it. That's like the most important thing that I've actually thought about my tone. But before, definitely I had a harsher sound, and it just surprisingly comes with an instrument. Since I've been like really little, I've always thought that performance comes first, then comes the instrument. But life has shown that different instruments bring out different things in us. And maybe this can also go with just like general maturity or maturing, or growing up. But in general, I just like feel more of a need to transfer these ideas through the clarity of sound in general. So my tone is something that I'll be today is something that I'll be working on to kind of like deliver that general idea. So I try to see, well, I still see it as a little bit of a fixed thing that I cannot quite change as much. So I'm not that like polymorph in general. I'm not this like multi-toned person, or if there are any, but still I strive to kind of like make it more diverse, but for the sake of actually delivering this different idea that may be coming up in pieces. And I think that these sound searches definitely just like resulted in this. I guess this is just work multiplied by time, with a little bit of help of some equipment like microphones and the Zoom recorders that like I used to work with to kind of clean up this extra residue or like these pre-sound noise that I always just like tried to like work out. So yeah, different nail shapes. Well, what can I say? It's really a search, and this search probably got a little bit more active since I started thinking about like what's my interest in music in general, or what's my interest in performance. And for some time, it has been the communication between me and the let's say audience, the people in the audience, because before that I felt that I didn't connect, so I tried to connect. It started working out like right away. Still a lot of things to think about and to work on, but then later when I started feeling that it's getting a little bit more like usual, this connection thing is getting like it's getting a little bit more let's say automatic for me, and I started communicating very like very easily. Let's say I started thinking that the whole thing is, well, now it's time to transfer, to try to transfer something, and it was the sound itself. So I guess if I think about this whole idea, I just try to imagine the sound as a certain like abstract idea that I just try to work on to make it, well, I guess everyone has their own imaginary sound aesthetics, so I maybe try to approach that one.
Barris is asking again, can we hear a little bit about your parents as well and what impact they had on your development as a professional musician?
Yeah, huge impact actually, because they were the ones that, let's say, watched me practice just as little as much as I could. So probably without them, I would be really skipping stuff all the time. So it was a struggle for me. It was a struggle to like to get even like half an hour a day, sometimes, most of the times. Really didn't know what to like, what to want and what to expect and what to like and what to like strive for. But in general, like my dad had a more rhythmic side to him, I guess. Like I always imagined it that way, that my dad always had these rhythmical remarks about what he expected from me, and my mom kind of like had melodic expectations. So I always thought about this as a like a merging of rhythm and melody in general. And this actually is a reflection of, I guess, what they did at the time. My mom still does that. Um, it's songwriting. My mom writes songs and she sings. And my dad was in charge of the whole technical thing and the arrangements in general. So there was a lot of rhythm, like let's say, um, hidden or like conceived through arrangements of these songs, and they kind of like sold these songs to artists. So they were working on demo material, and this was like what they did most of the time at the time, like when I was like growing as a guitarist and as a musician. So I guess yeah, my dad really took a huge part in my going to school thing. We've lived quite far away from school at that time, moved a little bit closer later. And at that time in Kiev, the transportation was really not at the level like to travel almost every day to school, not elementary school, but music school. Those are, yeah, those are separate probably in most of the countries. And I remember these really long ways that we had to take. from like our place to school. So ever since, actually, even until I was like 16, 17, he like took me by car to teachers who taught me this idea of guitar performance in general. And this means by taking me to places, means like taking me like in the suburbs, or if I say correctly, like through the borders of the city, like really far away, because most of the places I could take myself to, but when I was a kid I couldn't, definitely. And other places that were further away, he definitely took me to all these places and recorded these classes, although I really never seem to have used these videos, because I tended to think that I have it all in my mind, especially all that I needed. This was probably the information that that it was possible to like push away from, to like try to reach a certain idea of performance. Yeah, and they were always with me in these terms. Maybe sometimes a little bit, I felt that sometimes maybe a little bit too much, too many expectations that I kind of like unleashed at myself, that were unleashed on me through them, which is a good thing, because it kept me probably going and doing. In general, took a huge role in like taking me to competitions in general. So this is not like really my original idea of like, which is also a good thing, because this probably proves that I'm not really a maniac, like not really a competition maniac. So they like had this idea of taking me to really adult competitions when I was 15, 16. And one of the first one was Tanzman in Poland, where I played this Jose Sonata that I just learned. And Koblenz, Heinsberg, these competitions were the first ones that I ever went to with no age limit, while kind of like being underaged. So yeah, huge role.
Excellent. Yeah, it's great to have the support of your parents,
Yeah.
the sacrifices they make for you as
It is a double-edged sword though, because later you have to realize, first of all, for yourself what you're doing and why do you want to do it in general. But in other places, in other aspects, I really like kind of gained that, I guess accumulated that kind of like skill to try to care about, to try to care for. So like my goal today is really try to take care of that idea and skill, and to see where I can grow it and how I can transform it, and still keep it like alive in general. Because I've been thinking about this just recently. Everyone has something, or should have something, that they are really used to in general, or probably could be proficient in. And I just happen to have this thing, and should cherish it, because sometimes I think about it as something that I should like maybe like step away from in order to gain some new adult features, I guess. But at the same time, I sometimes keep reminding myself that this is a very self-centering process. Like these practices and recordings are very, very much self-centering, like help get back to who you are in general. So we have to kind of like, so the goal is to actually find who we are through also what we do, and maybe sometimes, or most of the time, try to like practice it and like make it grow, and remember about it as a source of like this centering.
Yeah. So actually, Richard Patterson, the person who is the artistic director of the Omni Foundation, wants to know. He wants to know: do you have any aspirations to one day perhaps conduct or go into conducting?
Well, I do have an aspiration to. Is this a proposal? Is a proposition? I do have an aspiration to just start creating my own music, because I've never really thought about this before, until a certain time. I always used to play music that has been already created, which kind of I found creativity within it. because all these techniques, technologies, and fingerings were like really the source of inspiration, is to find symmetry, is to find ways of work, and to see how you can bring or try to bring truth to the piece that you're playing, and by how little you can do it, how big you can do it, and how little you can deform it in the way, or deform it in a certain like creative way that really makes it still true to itself. So this, I guess, was the substitute for, I try to see it today, and all this that I do, I try to see as a certain foundation that I'm trying to build, maybe could be for creating something new. But in order to create something, I guess that you have to be really on that performance level when you will have an idea of how things can be and how they can be performed. This is also kind of like a punishment to a musician, to a creative person, a punishment, all these pieces that I have played, or one could have played, because it's kind of like already fixed in my mind. So I could be, there's a danger of going the same way as the pieces that I've played before, or being inspired by that. But I think that really synthesizing music is possible through many of the references, and the more the references, the less this would be apparent and evident, and the more actually creative and artistic this could get. So I'm maybe underlying the, like, maybe through this whole process, I'm trying to accumulate as much as I have understanding of music and this whole feeling, to maybe create something of a value that can be also presented on a platform like this, and maybe slowly introduce it. We'll just see as if this even works out, because like once you speak it out, it could hopefully not tarnish, but like the the performance of that idea gets a little bit harder once you speak it out. But I think that's been done for a reason now. But in general, conducting is a great thing to do. Working with a lot of people definitely takes determination in the job, and in order to be able to do so, I probably would have to be on a really high level of competence to well, normally when I communicate, I don't insist, and I don't, like, even if I feel that I kind of like understand the point and understand where we should be going, it is really a question of how I'm going to even like hint that, and how I'm going to even like present. So I guess this would be really a challenge in confidence in general, and challenge in like communicating with people, and actually like transforming this whole thing into an instrument. But also, like, this could bring to unconventional ways of like of working together. Definitely a really huge thing to do, but even if it's a third in line or fourth in line, I'm not sure if a lifetime would be enough to like and I have to think about something that I can like bring more let's say benefit with. So I'm thinking more about sound creativeness and sound creation in general, and see where this would go. I've actually tried conducting conservatory, although I've been prepared to like imagine these orchestral instruments around me. But then when it came down to like studying at the conservatory, actually what I had to do is conduct two pianos, which was a little bit which actually reminds me of a good thing that you need to try to create certain how are they called, conditions for a certain thing to happen. So the conditions in which I was like studying definitely did not communicate with me in terms of like me possibly becoming a conductor. So one with more determination probably would have survived that. But later, who knows? But I'm thinking more about like creating something.
Excellent. Well, we have a couple left. I know I said that before, but for real this time.
Yeah, the more the better, the merrier.
So Bill Young wanted to say, fantastic concert, Marko.
Thank you.
Bravo. Bill. What was a major influence and impact you learned from studying with Judicael?
Thank you, Bill. Nice meeting you in San Francisco. And well, it's really hard to point out one thing, because he is such a force of nature, I think. And, knowing that he has gotten this like tuition place, or how can it, like this professorship, yeah, right, in San Francisco, like got me going there. Before I considered maybe going to Paris to study with him. It is really well, I guess the language barrier was the thing that prevented me from doing that. But getting to San Francisco was, in a way, also very challenging and hard. And sustaining yourself in San Francisco is never probably easy, but it's cool. It was really a good time. And the things, I think it's generally the inspiration. I think at being a little bit older in general for, I guess, a student, but it's never, you're never too old though. But I've gotten my degrees earlier before, so getting back into this studentship, and in fact, I believe that this was more of a studentship that I had before, because I kind of like was traveling here and there, I guess, and not always there. Well, the mode in which I was studying before was a little bit more of like, let's say, episodical. So like every semester I would like come to for exams and do all this thing and then come back home. So in San Francisco, it was like totally different, because I had to be there most of the time, and I tried to be there most of the time, and really trying to, in general, friendship and communication was really a great thing. And the process of working, I really I think is it's very special. It's kind of like on that level when you know, you don't get that much explanation about elementary things, although you kind of like discuss them if something goes wrong. And in general, playing for a very high skilled, very high minded professional is a very special thing in general. It's like this process becomes more responsible for me. So I felt really challenged to, I remember feeling very challenged to bring something new every time, and don't think that I succeeded with that, but I think I had some cards up my sleeve to like, just like to recirculate repertoire. I've probably learned some new pieces, and this was the time when I worked on Rodrigo's Toccata as well. So actually, he was the one that really believed in my ability to like bring it up for the GFA, which I actually didn't bring up to, because I still applied with a different program, then recorded it. It was a very like very hectic time, so I guess I still made like a home recording of that piece, which got him surprised as to why I didn't apply with this piece for the GFA that year. But I tried to explain that one thing is playing in a dressing room and another thing would be playing at a competition, and this piece is a little bit still too fresh, although he's really brave in these things. And I at that time, I think I made the right decision, because later I got like a hand issue which got fixed. But at that time, if I would have put Rodrigo's Toccata without the ability to change the program, probably I would be in a lot of trouble, which probably result me in maybe canceling the whole travel. So maybe that was a good idea of like not applying with 4, but in general, his belief and his trust into my ability to like kind of like bring it up in general was a major like cliff pusher in general. And this was actually I did it kind of like consciously. We had a home concert where I decided to kind of play it for the last time, and because I decided to seal up the work for the time when I was in San Francisco, to like give time more for newer pieces, and just not, you know, to leech all the time for that piece. And then I played it at his house, and later he wrote me that he believes that I could like make it, that I could finalize the piece during our like work together. So this got me really going, and the whole process was really demanding in terms of really bringing something new all the time, with all these travels and all these other lectures. Not that many lectures, but still, like when you're trying to keep up with 3 things at the same time, it's kind of really new and challenging and interesting and exciting. And I was always like really active, I guess. Definitely most of the time we had the same idea about about how it should sound. And the times when I was the most glad and the most like happy, like as a communicative person, as a friend, was when he was really glad and satisfied with the like way I presented and saw the piece. I could see it in how he communicated and how he responded later. If there were moments when he really thought that I got it, that I got the idea that he also shares for the piece. So having just this human communication was really, really precious.
Excellent. So I think we'll finish with another question here by RA asking, Marko, how did you get over your reluctance to practice when you were younger as a young guitarist?
Yeah, reluctance to practice. Keywords were said before about the more interesting repertoire. You kind of like have to search for the pieces that you really want to play. At the time when I was 13, I didn't have much of a choice, as much of a choice. Then later when I got 15, I think I parted with my first teachers. So I started being my own captain in a way. I still studied, of course, with professionals, with teachers, but the choice was more of mine, especially the transitioning period, 1 year with a new teacher from the same school. He gave me more freedom in like choosing what I prefer. At that time, I chose Libras Matina because it was really the third movement was really popular around this area, let's say. And the third movement sounded really cool, and all the kids loved it, and I liked it as well. So I kind of like remembered some of the rhythms, and I played it, like tried to like give the idea of what I'm talking about. And he recognized the piece, and we instead of playing just the final, we like worked through the whole sonatina. And at that time that was the time when I started working on Capriccio Diabolico, Jose's Sonata, maybe later Alexander Tansman, a little bit later, but already at 16 I was playing these pieces. So these were really I understand how for different people it's really different. It's in terms of how many times I have seen people take hard pieces into work, and still there's something that has to be done in order to like speed up that progress, like catalyze that progress. It's really different for different people, but in general I know for a fact that these people were inspired to do so. So my main like issue was inspiration, which I compensated by, well, making these own choices that every musician, I guess, should have. I didn't have that much of a freedom of choice. Let's say I've been given a couple of things to choose from, and those things were quite poor, in my opinion, in the way they were composed. Well, I didn't have an opinion at that time, but like they were just not cute and not interesting. So even having the seventh etude by Villalobos, which was a struggle to play, still was just like essentially more interesting material. Later I got other, of course, issues with motivation, in terms of like money could not motivate me to participate in competitions, and fame and stuff like that really didn't get me going. So I guess this is why I kind of like later, like with time, it takes really a lot of steps, I guess, or maybe a long way, but like developed, I tried to develop a more sustainable, let's say virtually eternal idea of why am I doing this, or why I should be doing this. And right now, maybe the idea is evolving a little bit into change, into transformation. So now what would be interesting is actually seeing where this all could transform, and maybe like intertwine, not intertwine, but maybe like separate into like very, let's say, very good several lines, like several perspectives. So like, let's say full Bach, full like instrumental music, full orchestral music and stuff like that, like or full composition. But those things should be, I see them as multiple angles in which I would like to like move. So let's say dividing yourself from it, but dividing and giving your full attention to every aspect. But before that, really, I think it was just like trying to communicate, trying to feel things, trying to, well, this for me was certainly also almost always a self-search. I've been, well, let's say when we practice, I think we can give ourselves a lot of time to think about life in general, and think about stuff in general. So there were times when I was practicing and watching series and movies at the same time, or even listening to music, but really rarely, because it's the same audio, like let's say audio source, input source. So it's weird. But let's say I've been using different tools to try to keep myself going. And for a while, like when I was older, a little bit older, I practiced with these mics and Zoom and amplifier to kind of like search for these micro scratches and noises that I could get rid of. And I noticed that it actually keeps me going for the whole night, which was cool, because without those things, I would probably be falling asleep. And I've tried this. I've been falling asleep while practicing. But with these things, it kept me going for a long while, till I had to like comfortably stop myself doing this. Like when it was 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or sometimes even like later or earlier, I had to like tell myself, well, now the job is done. So I was really glad about that, because I felt always that I have to compensate for the hours that I under practiced before. But really, to each their own limit. In general, sources of motivation were seemingly always different. So if I say right now, it could be maybe not applicable to someone searching for something different. So definitely, when I was a kid, I was just like trying to go over it, like going through it, just trying to like to go through with it. Actually, for some period of time when I was like establishing myself more or less in terms of technique, definitely technical questions were what bothered me and interested me. As I said, I was looking for symmetry, and I like to play in these, let's say, four-fingered scales, passages, like skipping one, how are they called? Like one fret. So they were really wide, but in some way, it started when I was playing Villa-Lobos Concerto when I was 17, or even actually before that with other pieces. I felt that when I start from the first note and finish in the last note, it's suspiciously ends up very like there's no reason to cut. I can just like move through the strings very proportionately and arrive to the final spot like where I need to be. So these things really interested me and kept me going. And these whole like constructivist aspects of performance really kept me going for a really long while. Yeah.
When you said that you use a Zoom recorder when you practice, is that you have it on like it's just turned on, but it's not necessarily recording? And then do you have
Turned
it
on? Yeah.
so that
Turned
you're
on,
actually
not necessarily recording. Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
Zoom?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
online. It's online. It's real time. It's real time. Right.
Okay.
Because the better thing would be maybe to record yourself or do two things at the same time. I'm not really good at listening to myself. It's these days, it's not that I hate the sound. I should be doing this, but it's on another level for me. I'll think about it. Maybe this is what I should be doing like from now on. But I've always thought that I could do this, but I already get some let's say benefit from just like listening to myself from the outside. Especially helps with double top and lattice brazed guitars. Really helps hear yourself from the outside. When I got the Jim Ray Gate, definitely this was the time when I started doing this. Yeah, maybe even completely the first time when I started like, working like this in general. Before that, I don't seem to remember. I could have, but this was the most active time of me doing this. Really wonderful to search for your own tone through this micro let's say exploration. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you. That was very insightful, and I really appreciate your thoughtful answers and everything that you shared with us. Thanks again for taking the time, getting up early, speaking with all of us after your premiere. Again, thank you for the concert. What a joy it was for all of us to watch and listen. And again,
and for
thank
me to
you.
play.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you,
Is there
and thank you, everyone.
Is there anything else that you would like to do as far as like recording an album upcoming? Is there any plans for that in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have found the place. Thanks to this invitation from Omni, I have found a place where this could be comfortably done, not without extra sounds from the outside, but definitely a place where you get the sound that kind of like is already good. So I'll be trying to do more. And I purchased a camera, as I also already told David in the previous interview. I purchased a camera in November, and let's see where this brings us or me. Generally, I'll try to document everything that I come up with, and definitely I'm working on new stuff, new compositions, and new material. And hopefully that will all be presented, and also not forgetting the things that I've played before, a lot of thoughts and considerations about for them. Yeah, trying to fix, in terms of like trying to fixate things that you really do is so important, not just these days, but it's such a opportunity these days that I would definitely try to do something visually, audially intertwined, and present this to the listener. So thank you, Omni, for the invitation. It was really a huge, well, catalyst for thoughts like this as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it seems that the visual / audio is the next, it's the new format. So we're thrilled to have you on the series. And again, thank you so much, Marko.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Great to talk. It's great to talk with you, and looking forward to the next concert you have with us.
Great talking to you, Stephan, as well.
Take care.
Thank you for this talk.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care too.